Hello, it is I, Sir Devon of Kang Productions, and welcome back to another video, where today we have another instalment of the Drummond State line. Now, before we begin, I just want to say that if you're wondering what that noise in the background is, it's the dehumidifier, and this is also my first video recording with the new microphone. Well, my second video with the new microphone, because the first one was the New Year's special, which I premiered at stupid o'clock, by which time I bet everyone's just about knackered from their New Year's Eve parties. So, today we are painting the landscape. So in this video I add all the little details, and this bit was exceptionally hard because I wanted it to go greener, so the higher you got the greener it was, and I wanted to give it that Canadian feel to it, or North American feel. I love that part of the world, as I've said before. I really want to go to it. And this is a more mountain-like part of the railway, so I wanted to keep the track green, but then again the mountains are different colour, or the hills I'd rather say. And of course today we continue to paint on some of the greenery. I've just put some earphones on and I'm just getting used to the way it sounds. So then I decided to paint this part of the station, and I also added a parking lot as well. I think that's Riverdale South, no, Riverdale North, one of the stations, or it could be Pawnee. No, I think Pawnee's later on the line. So yeah, here I decided to start adding the greenery, then go on to the Alps mountain design because it looked mountaineery, as well as leveling out the playing field a bit, so it would add great effect to it. And by the way, how am I sounding with this earphones? Am I too loud with this microphone? Do I have to say the microphone's a damn good Christmas gift? So this is Pawnee, so I'm giving it that feel of the mountains, as well as adding some water. I tried to add some snow, and I'm gonna go through the valley here and make it mountain-like. Now we're getting into more snowy territory as we go towards Greendale. And of course, Greendale is called Greendale because it is very green there. Well, and it's named after Postman Pat's village and the one from Sabrina. So 2 different Greendales, and now a third one. I don't know why that big mountain's there, like that massive hill thing. I really should have been careful, but now it gives it that feel that you're in the mountains. So here I'm painting the textures, a colour that gives it detail. The thing is with this, it's about adding the small details in the textures. That can be very annoying at times, but rewarding as well when you see the finished product. So then we paint the track, or the way of the track, so it doesn't all look like a mountain thing. I spent a long while doing this, deciding what texture to paint them, and then of course we had the mountain line, which we're gonna get to. So of course this is Greendale, and I had to move the station a bit because it was too close towards the mountains. So, and of course there's the river, but we're going to go to the river after we paint the mountain line. And by the way, did anyone watch my Winter in the Alps route? I would have done the Winter in Germany route, but that had carols and I was worried about copyright and I didn't want it to get a bit, I didn't want to have a copyright strike, and I'm very cautious about those. So anywho, here I am painting the mountains and some of the hills as well. And I repainted them green. I think with this, with the textures, it's about getting the right ones to make it look like you're actually in that place, to make it as much like a mountain range as possible. Kind of like Snaefell in the Isle of Man. I went once, but it was too cloudy to see anything. So I decided to add some snow here, but I went back on that decision because if I'd have added snow, then it would have looked like it too early. So as the line goes on, you'll see in a minute, I decided to immediately change my mind on that and make it green and make it gradually more snowy as we go along. So I doubled back on that decision. I added a bit of snow. Yeah, the snow was, by the way, here in the UK it was snowing. We had a nearly white Christmas, the other week I was meant to say, and it was really cold. I wrapped up warm like I was Jon Snow or something. So then we have the little lake, and I wanted to give it that feel, and it was also, this bit is based on a segment of railway where they're in Canada and they pass this kind of river, and I thought that would be good for my line. And for this I make a lot of snap decisions where I'd add the snow first and then go over it. This segment of the line is now where we get snowy, and also it's kind of like a little scenic route. So of course the track bit was man-made, but everything else natural, so I'm going to add some wildlife there and stuff. I might even add a filming set, or I might add a set of mountaineers. I don't know, it depends. The new microphone sounds echoey with headphones, so I'm going to have to get used to it. But it's really good. So, as I was saying, we then go over the snow with greenery. There's a lot of snap decision making in this. And eventually we get to the snowy area. I know, I kind of like snow because it reminds me of a Victorian Christmas. And I love the Victorian era because the interiors were nice, the fashion sense was good in gentlemen's clothing, that is, like the cravat and waistcoat. I only like the Victorian outfit because I'm a fan of the 8th Doctor. But as I was saying, I then paint over Moria's Peak, is it? I believe. So I paint it, so I didn't want to make it all snowy. I wanted to make it green as well, say that we're not fully on the snowy peak. Because what happens in the summer when it's all green? And then I added some of the little details. And I, of course, took it slow because in previous times I've rushed with the big radius. I went smaller this time. So I then go to here and paint the lake white to give it the snowy feel, and in the winter it would freeze up. I don't know about doing a Drummond State Line winter thing next year, but that all depends on what's happening. So we then paint on the extra bits of hills. I paint the hills a golden colour because it's similar to the ones that one of the rivers in Yorkshire. Now we go to, I believe, the river. So I paint the hills on the river first. And because this is a very long stretch of terrain, I'm very careful with where I do it. So I paint the tops of the mountains first before I go onto the river. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. And yeah, very careful with how it's done. It's very annoying when the camera thing bounces off and you paint the wrong terrain. So I finish off the hills to go to the river now, as well as finishing off the extra details. Save it, boom. Then we go out of Greendale towards Hatton. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is paint the terrain of the side. Also add a bit of extra greenery there. And it looks very, I don't know, very Canadian. And also for Siren, when that's done, when I get to do the buildings, I might base it a bit off Norway, because I saw it in Mortimer and Whitehouse Gone Fishing. A really good show. I'm going to add some fishermen in this as well. I might even add a reference to Mortimer and Whitehouse. I love that show. It's so nice. Bob Mortimer's really funny. He's such a great guy. So's Paul Whitehouse. You know, two great comedy actors. I've not seen Reeves and Mortimer, but I've seen Paul Whitehouse and Harry Enfield in Enfield and Chums. And he is multi-talented. He can do a lot of voices, like the Julio Giorgio, the football manager. But anywho, as we go to the river, as I was saying, we paint it all green, so it's still going to be green. And I was going to make it lighter, but I wanted it to be this dark green because it's all nice. And I also, that was getting a bit annoying, but I'll sort that out later on in the video towards the end. So we paint this bit. I'm thinking of adding some extra bits there to put some forest on, or at least putting some trees there. And now we go on to the hills that are near the river. I think this will be good not just for people on the train, for passengers, because they'll want a nice view, but for the fishermen. There's also going to be canal boats, there's going to be everything. Hatton's basically a mini version of Norway, but without the snow. So we then move on, we then carry on painting the hills and the riverbank. The riverbank, I've based this, the idea for this river came when we were on holiday in Yorkshire and we made a stop by one of the rivers, and it was so, the rivers was so gold, and I thought this is a nice place, so I'm going to base a segment of the Drummond State line on this. Now, as for this, I wanted to put copper in there so it's similar to the ones you get in Yorkshire and Lancashire. So we start on painting this bit of the hill, sorry. It took a long time to do this, and that's what all I'm going to say. I'm going to do the banks last and the inside of the river last. And then I went over some final touches on the hills. The undo button was a bit of a lazy option because it would have eliminated all the big bits that I've done and not the smaller bits. So then we go on to painting the river. Now, I spent a lot of time trying to find what would go and what wouldn't. So I spent a lot of time deciding what to paint the bottom of the river with. And I eventually went for this sandstone, I think, yeah. No, I made the decision to go for this one because it looked more like, oh no, I'm gonna go for this one because it looks more like a river bank than the others. And it was similar to those copper that you see in the rivers. I love those rivers because the colour of copper makes it feel so northern, so Yorkshire and so Lancashire. I think it's one of my favourite places in the world to go. So I then worked around the edges of the river because if it was just going to be green it would look unrealistic, so I decided to go for this texture. I can't wait to add all the boats in the river. And then we go on with this and go around here. Yeah, I made the river a bit too deep, I think, but I know it would be good for the fish. And there might be a few things in there. Or a few shipwrecks. Or whatever. So we have this little place here, this little row along the river, which acts as an embankment, I'd say, for fishermen and for people to go and enjoy themselves or have some leisure time, especially if they have a dog and it likes to bark, although I would say rivers can be quite deep and quite dangerous, so yeah, watch it. So I then paint the edges of the other hills. Now this was getting a bit annoying, so I decided to add another layer. Actually, for this bit, I went and added another section of the land to then make the river more realistic, like it would go off into the distance. And actually the bit of the river that's close to the embankment is cordoned off, and there's a bit of a stay away from the embankment for safety purposes. I might actually lower that a bit in a future project because the river is quite deep and I'm going to cordon it off for a lot of people. I might give it some height a bit in a future bit of the line. But that's just about it for today. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. So goodbye and good night.